Welcome to Building the Future. I'm your host, Kevin Horick. You can check out new episodes of the show every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. If you missed an episode or want to get more information about the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com. Welcome back to the show. Today we have Martin KEEN. He's the founder and design director at Focal Upright Furniture. Martin, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. You've done a ton of stuff in your career, and we'll kind of dive deeper into that in a little bit. But first, I think we should start off and kind of get to know you a little bit better, and maybe let's cover where you grew up.
Yeah, sure. I was born in the UK. My folks in southwest England. My folks decided to bring their young family to Ohio, actually, from southwest England in 1971. I was 6.5 years old, so I've been here in this country since then. But I've lived in, spent my formative years, I suppose, in Ohio,
sure,
the heartland, all the way through college. When I finished college, I wanted to not just I wanted to get out of Ohio. I was seeking the ocean or the mountains. I wasn't sure, but Ohio was a little flat for me.
Sure.
And I love to sail, so water. I was looking for water.
Okay.
And moved to Boston after college.
Okay, so just let's step back for a second. What did you take in college?
I studied industrial design, specifically product design. So I've always wanted to design products.
Sure. Like physical products, obviously.
Yeah, physical products that we interact with.
So you get out of university, you move to Boston. What do you end up doing in Boston?
Well, I followed in my father's footsteps. My father was a shoemaker,
okay,
and then became eventually a shoe designer. And I got my first job in shoe design, working for Saucony, which is a running shoe company up north of Boston. So
how did you land a job at like a well-known company like that?
Well, with the professional design training, you're able to conceive mentally ideas, put those ideas on paper, and communicate them. So I think that's anyone who is seeking to get into design. You sort of have to develop a portfolio to show that you have the ability to conceive ideas and make at least pictures that can communicate those ideas to folks. So that's sort of how I got that first job. But obviously my father knew a few folks in the footwear industry, so he got me an interview.
Okay. And then you brought in your portfolio, they liked it, and then you ended up getting a job there, basically?
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. So walk me through kind of, your career as the designer, and then eventually you founded your own footwear company called KEEN Footwear. Walk me through kind of how you decided to start your own company, and why did you decide to found KEEN?
It's funny. I mean, actually, early on working for Saucony, I sort of wondered where these forms that the shoes were made on. The last, you've heard the term last,
sure,
which is the foot form that all shoes are built on in a factory setting. I always wondered sort of where they originated, and obviously they were somewhat foot shaped. But even since my first years at Saucony, I questioned sort of who developed those lasts and why are they not exactly like my foot? Why do my shoes not fit? The foot that I always notice my little toes kind of pushing to the outside of most shoes that I bought.
Sure.
And I don't have terribly wide feet. So I continued to question this with the various companies I worked for. I worked for Saucony for 2.5 years. I moved to LA, worked for K-Swiss for 2.5 years. First designer hired by K-Swiss, the tennis shoe company.
Interesting, yeah.
And again, I just had this question in the back of my mind. These companies are built on a sort of a fashion item in a way, and the fit of the product is not secondary, but it's not really thought of as the primary component. And making people feel completely comfortable in the product. It was more about the history, the heritage of the company, and what their product represented, whether it was running or tennis. It wasn't really necessarily about perfect fit. So I always questioned that, and then I eventually started KEEN after about 7 years after working for K-Swiss. I spent 7 years as a design consultant in the footwear industry, working for probably 15 to 18 brands.
Sure.
during that time, I came up with the idea for KEEN based on my own need. I realized a need for a sandal that was more like a shoe, that offered the protection of a shoe for. Excuse me. Turn off my phone here. For sailing, as I mentioned, I'm a sailor. I love sailing, but your toes are pretty vulnerable when you're on a boat, and you want to wear sandals, but your toes are hanging out there. And I had one too many incidents whacking my toes, and realized that I could come up with a better idea. So that's where I sort of came up with the idea for KEEN Footwear. And what actually pushed me to start the company was an event that happened in September of 2001.
Sure. Yeah.
Which was shocking to all of us, but it was some people, myself included, took that opportunity to kind of reevaluate what was important in life, and that's where I said, all right, I'm just going to jump off this cliff and start my own brand.
Sure. So did you self-fund it? Did you raise some money, or kind of walk me through the early stages of that?
I found a strategic partner that was in the business that had the ability to help me get to market.
Okay.
And somebody who had manufactured product before, footwear specifically, and also was interested in starting their own brand.
Sure.
So
did you know them through your connections in the industry, or did you have to go out and physically find them?
I went out and physically found them. It was through a contact that I had already made in the industry.
Okay.
That this person was now working for my partner, my future partner, and that's where it all started. So it's connections.
Sure. So you obviously, KEEN became a super successful global brand. You ended up kind of selling the company, correct?
Correct.
And so you sold. You're no longer involved. You walk me through kind of your post KEEN. Did you take some time off, or kind of what did you do right after you sold the thing? Did you stick around for a while and transition it out? What happened?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, I studied industrial design, specifically product design.
Sure.
I wanted to design all sorts of products. So while I love footwear, I had a great career in footwear. It wasn't the only thing I wanted to design, and I had actually come up with the idea for Focal Upright well before I had actually came up with the idea for KEEN.
Which is interesting.
So, yeah, so the tool that I was using, the physical tool that I was using to be a consultant in the industry, and then eventually being the founder and designer of KEEN, I felt was a very important thing that I had created, and just like the initial idea of KEEN, which was just a solution for a realization of my own need for a sandal that could be more protective. I realized that as a creative person, or anyone trying to apply their brain towards knowledge work, we take for granted our posture, and that it does or does not affect us. And I think it affects us greatly, our actual output throughout the day. And I hated sitting. Since I got that first job at Saucony, and I was prescribed a sit-down cubicle.
Sure.
And that's sort of just we don't question these things. We are we're creatures that tend towards the tools that are provided to us, and we don't very often question them, because that's just the way society is, right?
Sure.
And so I realized that getting into a different industry was quite a challenge, but as a designer who loves to create new and innovative things, I realized that the challenge is part of it, is convincing people that maybe a new habit can be broken if you introduce a new tool. So so in 2000, we launched KEEN in 2003. I sold my ownership to my partner just over 5 years ago. We launched Focal 5 years ago. Come May, actually in a couple months, and it's just been furniture ever since. So it's been quite a transition. It's been a great deal of fun.
Sure. So you obviously, you mentioned earlier that you had the idea kind of before the shoe wear, but I'm curious then, walk me through kind of building an early or the first prototype of Focal.
Yeah. Well, So in 1994, my son was born. my daughter was born, and we moved to Jamestown, Rhode Island.
Okay.
And I built a red barn behind my house. That became my design studio, and I realized I could work any way I wanted.
Okay.
And I could design my office space any way I wanted. And I just realized I didn't want to have a chair. I wanted to try a standing desk, so I bought an architect's drafting table, and used that for some months. But standing is tiring.
Yep.
So what do? Do you go back to the chair, or do you come up with some other solution? And I ended up finding a high stool that somebody had made out of an old tractor seat.
Okay.
More of a those high sort of bar
Totally.
type stools. And I used that for a while, but then I was just sitting high at this high table. And one day I just simply bent the backrest. It had a wire backrest on it. I bent that back, and I tipped the thing forward on its front two legs, so it sort of pitched the seat pan more open towards you, and just leaned back on the front two legs. So it was kind of a tipped seat, and I realized that it was a posture that I had never really considered before. This sort of halfway between, I was standing, but I was supported. I felt rested enough. But I felt engaged physically, and it switched something in me over time. This took many months, and then I realized that my output became much greater. My actual the creative time applied to a piece of paper or creating a drawing, whether it's on a computer or physical, pencil and paper drawing, the amount of time I could actually spend feeling creative increased. I don't know what percentage.
Sure.
But I felt like my output was better when I worked in this different way, and that was completely revolutionary to me. That we think to become more efficient at something, we need the new digital tools that are now available, the upgrades and all that, but we don't really consider the physical environment that we're and the way in which we're interacting with these digital tools. And that to me was so impactful. I realized, not just for myself, but for humanity to get off your ass when you're working. I mean, and then I came to the realization that the chair was designed for leisure. If you think about why we have the chair, it was always a place where you welcome guests to your house. Hey, have a seat. Let's have a cup of tea. Relax.
Sure.
Relax in the chair. You shouldn't go to work and relax in your chair. You should be attentive and working and getting as much output out of your waking creative hours as you possibly can. So it became my mission to really try and transform and break this habit, that this paradigm of sitting down for work. And we learn it in school. We're told to sit down, stay still, and pay attention.
Sure.
How many kids do you know that works for?
Yeah, totally, right?
So it's really a fun product to develop, because when people try it and they become convinced, they are thrilled and they are so grateful they found us and this new way of working. And a lot of people have the sit-to-stand desks already.
Sure.
But we're still provided with that same sit-down tool. And when you get tired of standing, what do? You go down to sitting. And the data that most companies have found that sell these desks, these sit-to-stand desks, is that after about 8 to 10 weeks, the novelty tends to wear off, and we are creatures of habit, and we go back to the chair, and the tables tend to stay in the down position. So having provided this tool now that allows you to bring the table up, maybe pull the plug in the wall so you can't put it down again, and keep yourself engaged. But when you need to rest, don't go down to the chair. Use one of our upright seats.
Sure. So you kind of have 4 kind of verticals, and obviously they share pieces between the two. And we kind of just covered the seat, but I'm curious to know, talk about kind of like, okay, so you built this seat, you have this desk. Walk me through kind of the process of, okay, you built this thing. How do you decide to say, like, wow, I really want to start kind of building these and create a company around this?
Yeah, that was a challenge. I mean, I spent my whole career in footwear, primarily making footwear overseas.
Sure.
Footwear, unfortunately, left the shores of this country when I started. I started in 1989.
Right.
At Saucony, and I remember that was sort of the tail end of the factories in Maine being packed up and put on all the machines, put on a ship and shipped to China. it was really, I was not really part of the industry when its heyday was in Lowell, Massachusetts, Lawrence, Massachusetts, Maine.
Right.
But that must have been a fantastic time, and that's all gone. It's all gone, and I kind of entered the industry during the tail end of that. So I was not familiar with domestic manufacturing, but I wanted to try and make a difference and bring jobs here.
Sure.
So part of the mission was to try and come up, not just develop this idea, but actually build the operation to build the product. So we had, and build it here. We're building, here in Rhode Island. And that was a real challenge because there's just very little infrastructure to support furniture manufacturing here. I mean, there's still a lot in Michigan.
Sure.
There's a great deal of furniture manufacturing there, and down in the Carolinas, although that's dwindling. So it was definitely challenging to try and take on not just building a brand, but also building the machine to build the products that the brand represents.
Right.
But if you're not challenging yourself, you're not living. And I think it's been a great deal of fun to build a factory here and to also build the momentum around what we're doing. And then, as I mentioned, eventually find a partner that can come on board and really make us have us expand greatly.
Sure. So you built the chair. At what point did you decide, okay, like I really need to build a desk that accommodates the chair and kind of the new angle?
Well, we did launch with both the Locust seat and the Locust desk.
Okay.
The desk was definitely the secondary thought. I mean, it was really about the posture the seat puts you in, because you can use our seats with any desk that you can bring up to a standing height or leaning height. But I wanted to design a table that complemented and was of the same character as the seat. So, but while we have a great desk, a nice lightweight aluminum desk with a beautiful German lifting mechanism, it's not about our desk. I'd really like to focus on the seats. I mean, we do make fantastic desks. We make great standing height conference tables that you can use some of our seats around. The primary focus, though, is our seat.
Okay. No, that's interesting to me. So you built this factory in Rhode Island. Kind of walk me through kind of how did you decide to kind of and start marketing this and getting the actual, products in businesses to actually sell, or did you start online, or walk me through kind of how you started getting them into the market?
Yeah, we launched at a trade show. I realize trade shows are maybe not the best sales tools, but they are good PR events.
Sure.
And I went to a trade show that probably is the best furniture design PR trade show in this country, the ICFF show in New York.
Right.
Which is International Contemporary Furniture Fair. So we went there in May of 2012, and I designed a 20 by 20 booth that was, striking and quite interesting to attract people. And we had, I think, 6 prototypes of our seat, 1 prototype of the desk, and we actually had a competitor's desk in the booth from a company called Human Scale.
Okay.
With a product that they were about to launch, a table called the Float Table. Just to show that it was about our seat. You can buy anyone's table, while we make the best tables.
Sure.
It's really about our seat, but they'll go with anyone's table.
Gotcha.
So we launched there, and we got a great deal of press. And I think part of that was it was a revolutionary idea, and part of it was I'm a known commodity that I've done something in my past that people know of.
Sure.
And people wanted to write about what Martin Keen's up to now. So it was a great event to go to. We went back the following 2 years. We haven't been back since. We mostly now go to the niche office furniture markets, the ergonomic markets. Oh, and South by Southwest, which is an interesting place to show. Yeah. So because that's kind of our core user.
Yeah, sure. That totally makes some sense. And the one thing that I do want to mention that I thought was really interesting is the finishes of the desk, and how you have a version where if I like it, or that I can actually have like dry erase, and like maybe that sounds like brilliant to me, right? Like obviously I haven't tried it, but like I always like write sticky notes, and they're like on my, like if I could just quickly write something down, I like walk me through kind of how you decided to come up with the different finishes and kind of the dry erase. How did that come to be?
Well, the dry erase is not on our workstation table because for individuals, I mean, you tend to have paper on your desk. But when you're at a meeting table, our conference tables, the biggest seller is the dry erase top. And I think we're not original in this. Other companies are producing dry erase tables, obviously dry erase boards. We're definitely not the first to do this, but I've just found it so incredibly. I'm a doodler all the time anyway.
Sure.
And anytime you're in a meeting and our tables accommodate 6 to 10 people, you're always taking notes, and some people forget that piece of paper, and it's just handy. It's I think the thing is, Kevin, because I find that this posture that the seats put you in makes you a more creative person. It makes you a more creative person. So you're always coming up with more ideas, better ideas, and to have the opportunity to jot them down, I think is key.
Sure. So to come back to the seats for a second, you have kind of a few different kind of lines or kind of products. So you have like the desk seat, but you have a few other kind of seats. Do you want to kind of walk or talk us through what's the difference between like the desk seat and the task seat and your like your leaning seat, and then you have like a portable one? What's the difference between them all, and kind of how are they the same and different?
Well, the 4 seats that are sort of focal seats that we do have some of our partner Safeco. We have a couple of their seats on our line in our line now.
Okay.
So I'll talk about the 4 seats we've developed. The first one, which was the Locust seat, is the one with that wooden base, sort of a foot ramp built in. That is sort of your all-day workstation seat. It doesn't really move from behind your desk. It's parked there, and it's your go-to place for all day working. And the idea behind that was, and what you can't see in the picture is that leg, that vertical leg that supports your backside. Yeah, is mounted on a gimbaled base. So you have a range of motion, so you can kind of keep this movement, this fidgeting going throughout the day. And you can also adjust the height and the angle of the seat pan. So you can really accommodate yourself in this sort of standing, leaning posture. That was our introduction. And then about a year and a half later, we introduced the Mobis, which is a small footprint seat that works very well around meeting tables. It also works great as a side seat to your Locust seat if you have your coworkers come and work with you at your desk for some time. It's a lightweight, very portable, small footprint. It's also selling very well at retail situations where you don't want to have your folks working in a retail environment sitting down, but they do like to rest every once in a while, whether it's behind a cash register or something like that. In fact, California has mandated a new law. I think it was a class action lawsuit with Target that folks that are spending their entire day on their feet now can demand to have some sort of a upright seat that keeps them a little bit rested. Our third seat, which we introduced, shortly after the Mobis, was the Mogo. This very portable, just two and a half pound portable seat you can throw in your backpack, and it's got this 3-stage leg that you can telescope out, adjust for your height. Very minimal tractor style seat pan, and it's similar in function to an old shooting seat, which I don't know if you've ever seen one of these from England.
I'm not familiar with it, but
yeah, they're very old. I think the gentry of England would go out with their shooting grouse and quail, and they would take their gun and they would take their shooting stick, which is basically a walking stick that you could fold the handle open and form this little T-shaped thing you could lean on to give you a third leg, in a sense, for stability while shooting these innocent birds out of the sky. I think it made you a better shot. So it's along that line where it's a seat you can take with you, and a lot of people are, I think, majority are not necessarily traveling with the seat. They're actually spend most of their time in the office space.
Right.
So it is a seat, a very inexpensive seat. For $99 retail, you can get this seat to work with your existing standing desk, and it gives you this restful posture that the Loca seat does, but at a price that's much lower, and it's a great sort of gateway drug. It's easy to get people hooked on a product that's inexpensive, and then they can come back and buy our other seats.
Sure.
The fourth seat we introduced is called the Pivot.
Okay.
Seat, which is one of the seats you can in our line that you can sit a little bit further down on, so you can bring your stand desk, probably down to about 32-inch height, so you can unload most of your weight from your legs, but you're still keeping your legs engaged. And I think that's the secret with all of our seats, is just to keep those quad muscles of yours working, because that's the pump that drives blood through forces our heart to work harder, which drives more oxygen to your brain. And I think that's where that cognition, the little cognition hook comes from, is just trying to keep you more physically engaged in your work. You'll notice that with any of our seats, is you're not putting your legs to sleep. When you sit down, I think after about 10 minutes, the electrical activity is almost completely gone in your quads, the biggest muscles in your body. So our mission is to kind of keep you engaged, keep you active.
Sure. So you've kind of recently partnered with a firm to kind of move and sail and get into more locations. Kind of walk me through how that came to be and kind of why you decided to do that.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, Kevin?
Sure. You recently partnered and kind of sold to a company to actually like move into more markets and kind of expand into more stores. Kind of walk me through why you decided to do that and how you found that partnership.
They actually found us. So while I was bent on building a machine to create what we had come up with here in this country, I realized that there were machines already in place, and that if we created this movement towards deciding that the chair was maybe and the evolutionary mismatch that I believe it has been, and that people will start converting to this new way of working, that will only be able to reach so many people. We're going to have manufacturing capacity issues, and then obviously just distribution issues being so small. So to find a partnership with a company that is already supplying this type of product, meaning work tools,
right,
to the world, then that was sort of a partnership that I was totally game for. And so we joined forces with the company LDI, which is the parent company, and they're the brand that is more well known as Safeco, SAFCO, and Mayline, Mayline. They're two companies that I think Mayline's been around in the U.S. for 100 years, Safeco for over 50 years, and they have very broad reach, plus great manufacturing in the state of Wisconsin. Unfortunately, not Rhode Island,
Sure.
But we're going to continue doing quite a number of things here from a manufacturing standpoint. But most of the manufacturing will move to Wisconsin.
Okay.
So staying in the States.
No, that's great. So how did they find you guys?
Well, believe it or not, the first hire we made was a social media person back in 2012. So we've tried to shout from the rooftops about what we're up to here since day one, and let people know that there's a better way of working physically, and people have gotten it. They've all seen the data on what has become known as sitting disease. That sitting is the new smoking.
Sure.
That we're all so sedentary throughout the day. People will do anything to try and get that Fitbit working. Even when you're at work, if you can get the number of steps in, then or that movement throughout the day, that fidgeting, and the fidget thing is while it seems like a very small amount of movement, it's this very low intensity physical activity that if you can just keep that up throughout the day, you burn a hell of a lot more calories than if you're just parked in your chair. So
Sure.
It's really about that fidget that I wanted to continue fidgeting when I was at school, but I was told to sit down and stay still. And now I'm breaking free. I'm creating tools that allow you to remain engaged in your work cognitively, but keep yourself physically more engaged.
So you kind of covered this, and like I'm sure there's people listening that are kind of wondering why exactly you decided to partner. Like, obviously they have this like bigger reach. They have a bigger sales team, and yeah, you're probably not. You have to give up some either equity or profit, but if they can get you more kind of reach and coverage and sell more product, then obviously like you're going to be making more money than you were just on your own, correct?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. And so they reached out to you, they found you through kind of social media. What did they kind of offer you? Were they just like, okay, we like what you're doing, we want to start getting your products distribution, or like walk me through kind of how that came to be?
Well, I think they saw us as a company that was kind of breaking the rules a little bit. This is a pretty conservative industry,
sure.
The office furniture market, and we wanted to sort of throw the status quo out the window and sort of start anew.
Sure.
And while they are kind of the opposite, they're a pretty conservative company. I think they like what we stood for, which was trying to come up with a different solution that maybe you just have to think about things a little differently, look at things a little differently, and maybe reconsider past assumptions. So I think they realized we had an interesting vision for the future, and not just the product we created, but also the way that our website teaches you about our product and about ways to make yourself and your team in your office be more active and retain better talent, engage better talent and retain better talent for your teams. That it's a very the physical environment that we work in it says a lot about a company. And you go to a company that's still got 80s cubicles, and sure. I think you're going to be pretty dismayed. So I think they saw us as this visionary company, and also have now enrolled us in being more of an incubator for the company as a whole.
Interesting. And so do you, when you say incubator, like what does that really mean? Like do you guys give ideas to their more conservative line as well, or kind of walk me through that?
Yeah, to work directly with them and their design group, and their sourcing partners to create products that are again more modern, more engaging. What we're calling a line of more active furniture.
Okay.
You never really think of your furniture as being something that's active, but when you use it, you're inclined to wiggle around, to fidget while using it, then that's sort of what we're focused on, is really trying to develop a whole line of active product.
Sure. So you've done the seats, you've done the desks, you've done the tables. What's kind of next for you guys?
Well, we realize there are a lot of accessories that are needed, storage. While we're not having to store much paper these days, that storage needs to be at the right height, so it's not going to hurt your back when you're reaching down to your filing cabinet on the floor. So we're working on the storage. We're working on acoustic control, because a lot of offices have moved to these open plan
Sure.
spaces, and being able to be your own architect in your space, to have the tools to create simple partitions, to not have to have I suppose facilities come and reconfigure your area, but to be able to have sort of that living office if you want to move it around throughout the year, to kind of shift things. So that we're working on that. So you can, if a lot of people like to work with noise around them, a lot of people like to work with absolute silence and no visual distractions. So allowing you to be able to customize your environment so that you can get into that zone, that state of flow. That is so critical, and I think why what our whole mission in the first place was about. Trying I wanted to be the best footwear designer I could be, and I realized it was through proper body support, through proper table height, through proper, either if I you know if you I don't mind audio stimulation or visual stimulation while I'm working, but some people like to be able to have that cone of silence around them. So looking at all those things that allow us to be more efficient workers, I think, throughout the day is what we're looking at now.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. And like, I'm assuming like maybe sometime in 2017 or 2018, you'll launch some of that stuff, or is it still kind of too early?
Yeah, in June 2017, this year, we'll be launching actually more seats. We have a couple more lines of seats coming out, which I'm calling Active Lounge.
Okay.
One is Active Lounge, and then the other are these fidget seats that are. We're trying to get a little bit lower price so we can get more folks on this movement bandwagon.
Sure.
And also looking at education. So fortunately, Safeco is involved in the education market.
Okay.
So my passion is to try and transform the next generation before they, so when they get to the office, they're going to look at the cubicle and go, no, this isn't for me. Where's my upright seating?
Sure.
So that's really exciting to start to transform education market right now.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and you're right. Like, you kind of have to start young, right? And
yeah,
that's actually really interesting. So we're kind of coming to the end of the show. So do you maybe want to close with mentioning where people can get more information about yourself and the company online?
Yeah. So the website is focalupright.com. And we have a site. Our site is very informative, from videos to information about the product, how to use it. We have some white papers on sort of the amount of relief your back is going to find. We're actually starting now a study on cognitive function and how your cognition is improved through just movement and engagement throughout the day. And yeah, so we're based here in North Kingstown, Rhode Island. We're actually moving to East Greenwich in a month to a new space.
Very cool.
So, but yeah, that's the website, focalupright.com.
Perfect. Well, Martin, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin.
All right.
You too.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening. The music for the show is done by Electric Mantra. You can check them out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.